Hey guys, tonight we wander somewhere you probably shouldn't. The doors to the Chapel of Lorne have creaked open again, not by human hand, but by the quietest heartbeat you've ever not heard. The bell above its rotten steeple tolls once, not with metal, but with breath. Not yours. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and if you're feeling brave. Post your location and the time where you are. I'd love to see where the Black Sermon finds you tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The bell tolls again, but not aloud. It hums in your bones down where your marrow sleeps. You feel it before you hear it, a tremor behind your ears, as if something old and cruel just noticed you noticing it. You stand at the edge of what the villagers once called St. Goldburn's Hollow, though no map dares name it now. What was once a church leans under its own age like a drunkard leaning in for a whisper. The stained glass is intact, but not with saints. Its panes depict creatures, to spine to kneel and a crown to beg. They've always looked down from the windows, even when the chapel was buried. You'd heard about it from a dying archivist. He didn't mean to tell you he was choking on wormroot tonic at the time, but in his last coherent moment, he clawed at your wrist and spat out. If it rings once, leave. Twice, listen. You felt clever then. You thought, what could an old stone and moss church offer that a modern mind couldn't dismantle? You were wrong, as most modern minds are, especially the clever ones, and so you stand at its threshold. The weeds around your feet twist slightly, following your boots like blindborns. The wind doesn't blow here. It exhales, low, long, patient, inside. The pews are all turned toward the pulpit, but the pulpit is missing. In its place, a spiral of soot where the sermon was once given. Black soot, wet soot, still smoking soot. The chapel bell tolls again. No clapper, no rope. Just that sound, that vibration in your ribs. It says, you've been expected. A voice you do not hear but understand nonetheless. Much like your situation now, isn't it? The chapel doors remain open behind you. The stone tiles beneath your feet whisper, just air moving. No, they are not whispering in wine, but in words. A language that makes your tongue twitch. Somewhere in the nave, something breathes. Deep, patient. It doesn't hide. It doesn't need to. The Black Psalm of Vorther mentions this moment. Though most copies burned during the Blue Purge, one fragment survived, etched into the ribs of a heretic saint. When the church bell rings with no hand to pull, kneel not. Offer no prayer. Let not your shadow fall where the sermon once stood. Naturally, you step closer to the sermon's spiral. You always were curious, or maybe it was pride, or maybe it was that brief flicker of warmth you felt when the bell rang, like recognition. You pause at a fallen hymnal. Its pages are untouched by rot, yet the ink swims like living script. It forms a new line as you watch. Listener, at last, not reader, listener. It knows you're here to hear. Behind the altar, or what remains of it, a shape stirs. You catch it only as it retreats behind the velvet shroud. Velvet? No, too coarse for fabric. A painting peels free of its frame and floats. It depicts, well, you from behind. Standing here now, the shadows are wrong in it. Your own shadow is longer, split at the head like antlers, much like the old bloodline of the Elcor, whose heirs all bore the shadow crown, a hereditary curse that manifests just before death, marking them as inheritors of lost thrones no longer spoken of, and whose names vanish from all records, even stone. But you're not of that line, are you? A laugh dry as paper. Deep as cellar water stirs the air. It isn't mockery, it's delight. The kind one feels when an old friend finally understands the punchline. The painting crumbles. The bell is ringing again. Not once, not twice. It is constant now, a heartbeat, a song, a chain. You feel it pulling your name from your mouth. But your mouth is closed, isn't it? No one speaks the Black Sermon aloud. Because it's not a sermon of words, it's a sermon of remembering. You're just beginning to recall what you agreed to forget. A final note from the archivist. If you hear your name, don't answer. They only call you when you're already inside. You are already inside. The silence you now walk through is not peaceful. It is the kind that arrives after a scream too large for the world to hold. The hallway you've entered is narrow, the walls damp with old sorrow. The oil in your lamp flickers with suspicion, casting thin shadows that move like they're embarrassed to be seen. This is the path the acolytes once took to the Whispering Vault, though none of their names remain in the church's archives. None except one scrawled in red ink that never dried. You see it? Etched along the baseboard where rot has yet to claim the wood. Pale Father, forgive the boy in the steeple. A curious message, but no one ever forgave him. Or the bell he rang. There's a door ahead. Tall, warped, breathing, faintly. The sigil above it has no right angles, no known geometry, only the unsettling sense of symmetry you feel in wasp hives or broken mandibles. You reach for the handle, and it resists your touch, as if trying to tell you something. Inside, the chamber waits. Once, it may have been a vestry. Now it is a reliquary for sins sanctioned by any god. Stacked along the curved walls are leather-bound tomes, stitched with cords that smell of familiarity, too much so. You hesitate before touching them, and the books murmur their disappointment. One of them opens on its own. Its pages shift without your help, each one whispering in a dialect of your own thoughts, dredging memories you never lived. He dreamt of a sermon that began without voice, the book says. A heartbeat carved in iron and bone, you understand. Then, the bell's sound was not heard, it was felt. On a shelf beside the book sits a relic, a small censer shaped like a crying face, its eyes hollow and lips sewn shut. The chain wrapped around it pulses faintly. It is still warm from the last prayer. You pick it up, and in doing so, you inherit a burden. As you turn, something passes behind you in the mirror hung on the wall, but there is no mirror. There never was. That's what they tell you later. The air is heavier now. The ceiling lowers by half an inch. Or maybe it's your spine, bending towards something ancient. However, is breathing in your hand. The text continues of its own accord. They took the boy to the vault, where voices were skinned for choir robes. You do not blink. The room does not allow it. You sense the vault's presence now not in the map of the church, but in the crawl spaces between syllables, in the rhythm of the mortar and bone. It is not beneath you, it is beside you. You reach out to close the book, but your hand touches only ash. It has already burned itself away. Now the room darkens not from a lack of light, but an abundance of shadow. It accumulates, pools. You hear a drip, like ink falling into a chalice. A single drop lands on your shoe. It isn't ink. Something sings faintly in the next room. A song without words, a note stretched too long. Your stomach turns in recognition. That note was part of the bell's peal. On the northern wall, you find a narrow door half your height, carved with inverted lili. You duck inside. The corridor beyond is carpeted in velvet decay. Here, the architecture shifts. The space isn't content to merely contain you, it anticipates you. An alcove opens, revealing a statue of a veiled woman with no hands and far too many teeth. Her plaque reads, "She wept when silence ended." You step closer, and her tears begin again, thin streaks of something pearlescent, something that whispers as it falls. Beneath her veil, her mouth moves. No sound, just the motion, just the invitation. You notice a second inscription scratched crudely along the base. The bell's ring wasn't made by hammer or clapper. It was made by the child's last breath, and suddenly you hear a child giggle. Oozewood seeps rot rather than sap. The carvings spiral endlessly down its length, screaming faces stitched together by script, each one locked in a sermon of agony. You think you see your own jawline among them, ... and in the pews. Oh yes, they are full. Not with parishioners, but with waxen mannequins draped in vestments too old to still be whole. Yet whole they are. A few even bow their heads as if still listening. As if the sermon never ended, you try not to look directly into their eyes, for the glass is flawed in them and reflects more than just light. Upon the altar rests a single object, the belchered reliquary. It is said to contain the dried sinew used during the first and final Black Sermon. The cord is twined in a spiral, taut as though holding breath. It pulses faintly, in time with your heartbeat, or not quite your heartbeat, and etched into the reliquary's frame, in bone white lettering too small to be noticed by most, you read. When the sermon begins, the dead must listen. Your fingers brush the reliquary, the room changes. The light dims, but no source can be seen. The mannequins sit up straighter. The pews breathe, inhaling dust and exhaling dread. You hear the first note, not sound, not tone, but presence. A vibration that enters through your bones and makes space inside you. You were not built for this sound, and yet something inside you was. Your feet move you forward, even as your mind drags back. Your lips begin to form words you've never learned, syllables carved into your marrow long before your name ever found you. The reliquary shudders. A sound escapes the pulpit. Not quite a voice, more a remembered scream, stretched until it weeps. The mannequins lean forward in unison. Their joints creak, some blink. You blink to only once, and suddenly, the pulpit is occupied. A man stands there. No, not a man. His robe is midnight, stitched with scripture, each seam weeping ink. His hands are wrapped in pages torn from Forbidden's Gospels, and where his eyes should be, candles burn. He speaks, but you hear only echoes from your own lungs. As if your breath betrayed you and learned another tongue, he gestures once, the reliquary opens. Inside is not a cord, but a tongue, blackened, twisting, alive. It lurches toward your hand, eager. Like a pet remembering its master, you step back and the entire congregation turns their heads in disapproval. It speaks again, not in words, but in meaning. You see a memory not your own, a child, mute from birth, standing atop the bell tower, holding the severed cord that would one day become the reliquary's offering. His eyes are hollow, his mouth is smiling. He pulls the cord with effort. The bell rings once, and from the village below, every prayer becomes silence. The man at the pulpit, if man he ever was, nods toward you. You understand, the Black Sermon never ended. It simply paused, waiting for the voice that could continue it. You are not that voice, but something inside you is. A fragment, a relic, a lineage long buried. From the cathedral's shadows, a rustling begins. The mannequins now stand, slow and reverent. Their hands rise, fingers pointed not toward the pulpit but toward you. A hymn begins, not sung, leaked. It drips from the walls, from beneath the pews, from your own ears. It is the same note that hummed in the reliquary. A note of opening, of recognition. You back away, stumbling toward the sanctuary's side, toward the one carved with thorned halos and screaming saints. Your fingers find the iron handle, cold as betrayal. You wrench it open. The hymn halts, and the voice that replaces it is small, but close. It whispers. The bell rings again, but this time it rings for you. The corridor beyond the sanctuary door doesn't greet you, it absorbs you. Light dies here. It doesn't fade or dim. It dies. The moment the door creaks shut behind you, a final sliver of sanctuary vanishes like a snuffed candle. The handle no longer exists. Only the wall remains. It has always been wall. You breathe in, and the air tastes of old parchment and hollowed teeth. The floor is neither stone nor wood nor metal. It is softer, like walking across old choir robes soaked in time and regret. Beneath your feet, you swear something gives slightly with each step. Not like fabric, like flesh, bruised and waiting. There are no torches, no sconces, no windows, but you see, or rather, you are shown. The corridor reveals itself as it pleases, and only ever just ahead, as if the space itself is reluctant to exist unless you ask nicely, and even then, only for a moment. To your right, a painting hangs. It's cracked in a perfect spiral. A woman, shrouded in violet silk, stands with her back to you, looking into a mirror. But in the mirror, she is facing you, smiling, and her hand is not resting on her hip, it is reaching through the glass. The plaque below reads simply, "The listener." You walk faster, The corridor sighs. Somewhere ahead, the second chime echoes. It isn't from a bell, not this time. It's the sound of something remembering its purpose. A low groan from beneath the corridor, as if a choir buried alive finally found the first breath of soilless air. Your shadow stretches ahead unnaturally, flickering even though there's no flame behind you. At one point, it seems to split, forming a second silhouette thinner, taller, anticipating your movements. A moment later, it's gone, but not forgotten. On the left wall, a stained glass window, but there is no source of light behind it. Still, it glows faintly. You lean closer. The glass depicts a man hanging upside down by his ankles over an open pit of scrolls. The scrolls are burning. The man is laughing. The inscription below reads, "Those who confess truths unearned." Something moves behind the window, not shadow, not light, a glimpse. A glimpse of a thing without edges, humming a single word in a dozen tongues. Continue. You don't look again. At the far end of the corridor, a door waits. It is not closed, nor is it open. It is in a state between, held there by tension alone like a breath before a scream. As you approach, you hear it whisper your name. Not as it is now, but as it was before birth. You do not remember that name, but your bones do. Your spine twitches. The handle is wrapped in fabric bandages, stained with something black and iridescent. When you touch them, they feel wet. But your hand comes away dry. That worries you more. You push the door open. Inside, a reading chamber, choked in dust and devotion. Tables littered with scrolls that recoil from the light of your presence. Shelves of books too large to open and too old to close. Candles shaped like spinal columns line the walls, all unlit. And yet, their flames flicker as if winded. In the center stands a single, towering lectern. Upon it, a tome bound in skin. Its cover bears no title, only a single eye closed. You do not want to touch it. You touch it, the eye opens, not in surprise, not in pain. In recognition, you returned late. It whispers. You ask nothing. You only turn the first page. It bleeds. The text shifts even as you read. Language isn't stable here. You understand it anyway. It tells of the Echo Doctrine, the heretical belief from the southern crypt monks of Veltrin that all voices are borrowed, and when one speaks too long without silence, the voice itself becomes a separate entity, hungry to exist alone. They claimed this is how sermons rot. They claimed the Black Sermon was not a sermon at all but a being, born from words spoken to truthfully, too often, in places where the walls listen too closely. Your name is written in the margins of every page, and beneath it, scratched in a hurried claw. Swallow no more tongues. You turn another page. A drawing now of a bell tower wrapped in wings made of teeth. At its peak, a man, arms outstretched, his face is blurred, or scratched out, or both. Beneath him, the town of Delrith, shown in 3 stages whole, crumbling, gone. You recognize the final form. You've seen it in the sermon's vision. Or maybe you saw it from the future. And here, another note. When the third chime rings, the dead walk backward. A scraping sound. Behind you, something stands. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't move, but it stands. You don't look. You must not look. Instead, you close the book. The eye closes with a shudder, silence. Then, the scraping again, but farther away. Heading deeper, something invites you to follow. But the room holds one last secret. You glance upward. Etched into the ceiling in bloodless scrawl. You were here before. You left this note. Why did you forget? The invitation to follow it lingers like a scent bitter cloves, scorched vellum, and something wetter. But you stay just a moment longer. There are still questions here. You do not understand. It tries again. You cannot look away. It is still you, but older, cracked. The eye on your left side is ink-filled. The right is too bright. You think of the tone. You think of the footprints. You think this is who leaves them. Then the mirror shatters, quietly, elegantly. On the other side, the chapel. but not as it was, as it will be ruined. Burning with silent fire, the pews are bones now. The altar bleeds upward, and at the pulpit, hooded and still, a figure stands. Their head lifts. They do not have a face, just a mouth, stretched ear to ear, full of quiet tones. They speak, you hear nothing, but your mind fills with understanding. And one word rises through it all, impossible to avoid. Echoing like the second chime in your skull soon, the word lingers. Not in the ear, not in sound, but deep beneath the skin of your thoughts soon. It glows faintly, as if tattooed on the back of your eyelids. You blink, still there. The chapel before you is not waiting, it is welcoming. The ruined fire that wreathes its rafters does not consume its sings, not in notes, in intent. You step across the broken threshold, and the ash beneath your feet shifts to script, curling into words you're not yet permitted to read, not yet, but one loops again and again beneath your solace supplicant. The pews are skeletal not just in form, but in history bones of martyrs twisted into worship by the weight of a truth they dared uncover. Each spine is bowed unnaturally, frozen in reverence or recoil. Perhaps both, you take your place among them. Not sitting, just belonging, the hooded figure at the pulpit remains still. You see now their robes are stitched from rejected prayers, phrases too dangerous or forgotten to be spoken in daylight. The script undulates gently, as though breathing, and then they raise their arms. The church bell tolls again. But this time, you feel it not in the air but in your marrow. It hums up your spine, seizing your lungs for a heartbeat and letting go just before death can claim interest. 1, 2, 3. The tolls are not counted in time but in recognition. Something remembers you now. The figure's arms stretch wider, and their hood falls back. There is no face beneath, only a second mouth, no lips, no teeth. Just a dark oval where noise lives. You expect sound, but nothing emerges. Instead, your tongue begins to ache, pulse, then heat, then pain. The Black Psalm of Vorther warned of this, though never directly. Fragment 9 reads, "Let silence find the faithful, and their tongues will burn until blessed absence remains." You try not to open your mouth, but the pain insists. You taste blood, you taste ink. The figure's second mouth opens wider. Not in hunger, in instruction, you understand. You don't want to, but you do. Your hands raise slowly. Not your will, not entirely, just inevitability. Your fingers reach your lips, but something interrupts. The bell chimes a fourth time. That shouldn't happen. The chapel stutters, slightly, like a puppet jolted by the wrong string. The flames flicker uncertainly. The second mouth blinks. And in that moment only, then you hear the first actual sound since entering this place. A laugh, dry, crooked, uninvited, not coming from the pulpit, behind you. You turn to fast, your vision trails behind like cloth caught on barbed wire, and there, just outside the chapel's threshold, stands a figure in a mask. Not one of the ones from earlier. No, this one is different. This one is wearing yours. Your face, carved in wood and wax, twisted in a grin that doesn't belong to you. The figure lifts a hand gloved in something that might have once been velvet and beckons. The chapel doesn't like this. The flames recoil, hissing as if in protest. But the robed figure does not move. Their second mouth closes. The sermon pauses. The masked intruder tilts its head. The masked mouth never shifts, but you feel it smiling wider. You follow. You're not sure why. You just must. Outside, the sky isn't black. It's hollow. The stars have been plucked out one by one, leaving only tear tracks where they used to shine. The wind doesn't blow, it remembers. The masked figure walks ahead of you across the chapel courtyard, where the statues have now all turned to face inward, toward you, their hands lifted not in blessing, but warning. The mask looks back and speaks. Its voice is yours. Not your living voice, the one you left behind. The one that sang the verse wrong. It says only, "You're not too late." Not yet, then it collapses. No scream. No fall, just absence. You walk forward, past where it stood, and into the archive. Not a room, not a library. An event. The door does not open. It remembers you and ceases being a door. You step through. Here, the shelves are alive. You don't mean that metaphorically. They breathe, they shift, they whisper secrets they never meant to contain. And the books, they bleed, not constantly, just when touched. One tome falls at your feet, opens by itself. The pages flip to a name, yours, writing the same word over and over until the parchment peels itself off the table and tries to escape. You drowning, not in water, but in names, each name forming a bubble that bursts as it touches your skin, burning syllables into your bones. You don't look away from these mirrors, because you know now, one of them isn't a mirror, one of them is a door. You reach the end of the corridor. A final mirror stands taller than the others, its surface like cooled mercury, thick with promise. There is no reflection, no image, only a voice behind the glass, whispering, almost ... playful. Tell me something true, it murmurs, in your own voice again, but younger and certain. Before it learned to lie, something only you would know. Something you're afraid will become real. The corridor tightens behind you. The breathing walls exhale warm, sweet rot. You feel the mirrors leaning. You don't want to answer. But this place isn't interested in want, so you whisper the truth. You whisper the one thing you've never spoken aloud, not even in dreams. The thought that coils beneath every silence. I think I deserve what's coming. The mirror does not shatter. It smiles, not a crack, not a twist. The surface bends into a crescent grin, and opens, not like a door, like an eye you fall through. Not downward, inward, you land in a garden. Or what once was a garden, now it's ash. Trees that grew books instead of fruit, all burned, statues of saints with mouths sewn shut and eyes that weep wax. Benches filled with those who sought peace and were instead read, each spine opened, each story unwritten. The ink moves, you don't read the words. You hear them inside your lungs. Let the tongue split, let the song repeat. Let the mouth of silence open, let the ash sing. Who were said to chant their sermons from the stomach, having surrendered their mouths to a greater voice. You turn the page, more blankness, until you see it. The ink doesn't appear, it arrives. One droplet at a time, bleeding up through the page. Your hand stings. You look down. A thin slice has opened on your palm, not painful, almost surgical. It leaks ink. Your blood is not red here. You feel it settle on your shoulders, the weightless crown of obligation, invisible, immutable. The altar shudders, a hatch opens beneath it. Downward, always downward, but not a stair, not a ladder, a throat. You are meant to descend. Not by will, but by gravity of purpose, you step in. The walls are soft, warm, wet, they pulse. Each step forward is swallowed behind you. You do not turn back. You couldn't if you wanted to. The sermon is still being spoken by you, by the walls, by the kneeling things who once had names. You descend for what feels like years, but time no longer trusts you. And finally, you arrive, the crypt of the unuttered. The place where sermons go to die when no one is left to believe them. You stand within the crypt of the unuttered, and it does not welcome you. It doesn't need to. It knows you, knows the soft rot of your doubts, the curl of your tongue when you pretend not to believe, the way your dreams reshape around what you fear to name. The space is shaped like no cathedral ever built to many walls, not enough ceiling, and corridors that end in themselves like thought loops. Stained glass flickers faintly along these walls, but there is no light behind it, only memory, yours, distorted, as though someone repainted your life in reverse, using only ash and apology. You step forward, the floor accepts you with the squelch of regret. To your left, a procession of statues, faceless, shrouded in mourning veils stitched from names you haven't earned. To your right, a choir loft though no one sings. Their mouths are sealed with wax, but still quench, still try. You hear the hum again, lower now, like a prayer said underwater. The sermon continues not in words, but exclusions. You feel them peel from your skin like forgotten sins. The memory of your favorite lullaby, the taste of summer rain. The name of the first one you buried. Each one gone now, a price for trespassing. The path ends at a door you notice first. The absence of hinges, second. The smear of symbols around its edge burned into the stone like cauterized bones. You recognize one of them. Your jaw unlocks with a click that echoes like thunder beneath skin. Your throat flattens, your teeth throb with him. You speak not with your will, but with the accumulated ache of those who came before those who listened too long. And the door exhales, it folds inward, vanishing into vapor laced with a coppery sweetness. The smell of forgotten prayers, the scent of surrender. Beyond it lies a vast chapel, but not for worship. This place was built for witnessing. Black pews stretch in every direction, angled subtly toward a central pit ringed by sermon stones. Upon each stone, a different verse is scrawled in blood and bone, some fresh, some pulsing. You walk between the pews, you are not alone. The congregation is already seated. They don't move, they don't breathe. Some are flesh, some are wax. Some are illusions sculpted from shadow and sold, but all of them turn to look at you. Their eyes, where they still have them, do not blink. But they understand. You are the mouthpiece now. You approach the pit. There is no pulpit, only a hole. It breathes, it waits. This is where the first sermon was spoken. The one that cracked the moon and taught trees to weep. The one that unraveled the names of saints and left only hunger behind. You peer into it, and something peers back. You remember the legend now, whispered through torn scrolls in the catacombs. The first sermon was not uttered, it was heard. And those who heard it became its echoes, walking mouths with no memory of silence. The shadows lean in, the statues begin to weep again. The wax-lipped choir moans through sealed mouths, and you step into the pit. It's not deep, but it goes forever. Down here, words have weight. Harp strings of invocation, your breath, the metronome of unraveling. The first sermon resumes through you. And the congregation, they answer, not with speech, but with transformation. They melt, they blur, they rise as a single undulating shape, echoing with phrases too thick for human throats. You have awakened the black harmony. The psalm warns, when the first choir sings again, all clocks will weep, and those who cannot hum the tune will become the drumskin. But you know the rhythm, it's your blood. You speak one final line, time is a mouth, and now it is full. The light dies, not fades, dies as though suffocated. And then a heartbeat, yours, maybe, but it feels older and hungry. The dark is not empty, you fall through it. Though there's no motion, you scream into it, though there's no sound. You pray, but here, prayer is just breathing in reverse. The pit does not hold you, it becomes you, engraved with concentric circles that shift slightly when you look away. The ceiling is a mouth, it breathes frost. This is the deep nave, the chamber beneath the sermon's breath. You reach it. Incense doused in sweat, you stand at the center of 7 braziers, none lit, each bears a nameplate, though the script shifts before your eyes. One moment it says severance, then witness, then there is no flint, no torch dot, only a single tooth-long barb, still warm. You press it into the brazier, it catches, the flame is violet. It hums in iambic rhythm, you understand. A locket with your mother's voice humming inside. A nail etched with the date of your first lie. A shard of stained glass showing your reflection. Older and crying, a page torn from a journal you never kept. A sliver of bone labeled second regret, a feather blackened with remorse. A vial of rain collected the day someone forgot you, you choose carefully. He who walks beneath forgotten psalms shall find his spine bent to match the glyph. The bell does not toll, it remembers tolling. Every silence is a scream paused, and the moment you tip the violin, everything stops. No sound, no movement, Not even thought, just presence. A figure stands behind you now, tall, lank. Ink must bleed. You do. A single drop from your nose onto the obsidian floor. It is enough. The chamber folds inward. The pages close. You are back in the pit. But it's not the same ... now. But before it begins, you must walk the chime gauntlet. You look up. The bell is ringing again. But this time, it sounds like you. You ascend the staircase, though your feet do not move. Stone blurs past too narrow for the turn of a shoulder, too vast to measure. The walls drip with time, not water time. It seeps down in streaks of rusted gold, as if built to bar the way to nothing in particular. Its surface bears 7 locks, each lock bears a phrase. The way a knife is thick with history, every movement is an invocation. On the 6th step, you remember something you were never meant to know. The bells are alive, not metaphors, not symbols. Alive and worse, once they've heard you, they remember. A whisper clings to the wall like mold. One rang once, when no one walked. It hasn't stopped since. We buried it beneath the sea. Now you must turn sideways, your cheek brushing bronze that feels like flesh. You do not apologize. The bells do not forgive. The 12th bell bears a face, eyes closed, lips stitched. You know it. It's yours. Much younger, innocent. Terrified, its eyes snap open. You do not scream. You nod. The bell calms. Somewhere behind you, one of the earlier bells weeps. The corridor curves. Now the bells hang upside down, filled with ink. They do not sway. They watch. Your footsteps are muffled now not by cloth, but by absence. This stretch of the gauntlet was removed from existence once, deemed dangerous. Someone brought it back. You, perhaps. A side corridor branches off. Down it, another bell rings soft, lonely. The side path ends in a mirror. You look in. The reflection is not human. Not anymore. A torso edged with scripture, eyes hollow but flickering with sermons left unread. Your shadow behind you now reads from a floating scroll, and you realize the sermon writes you as you walk. You were never meant to finish this path, but something watches. Something waits for the final bell. It is called the Archivist of Echoes. It lives at the end of this corridor, and it is starving. The bells begin to ring softly, one by one, not from movement, from memory. They ring with every moment you thought no one saw. The lie you told your dying friend, the name you forgot on purpose. The day you said I'm fine, and weren't. Each toll is precise, each toll feeds the archivist. You're close now. The walls dissolve into mist. The bells fall silent. You pass the final threshold. The archivist awaits. It is not a figure. It is a book, open, bleeding ink, hovering above a pedestal made from pulp voices. Its pages turn. Your face is on one. Your name, your real name, is on another. You tried to speak, but your voice has already been filed. The archivist does not greet you. It indexes you. Then the final bell rings. It sounds like regret, and the next page turns blank. Ready, you step into the room beyond the bells, but there is no room. There is only space, a dome without surface, a volume defined not by stone or wood, but by reverence and dread. Here, sound behaves differently. Here, even your thoughts echo, bouncing off unseen geometry, returning twisted, translated. The archivist has vanished, or perhaps it was never there. Perhaps it was only the warning label stitched into the reality that surrounds you now. You float, or fall, or simply remain, and around you, the sermon begins. The voice doesn't arrive from a direction. It comes from all of you, not inside your head, inside your outline. The hollow between your bones. It speaks the way fire might speak if it was raised in a monastery. It says, this is the black moment. This is the sermon beneath sermons. You are late, but not too late. Yet, you cannot respond. Your tongue is sewn. You do not remember when. The words unfurl not in speech, but in ritual shapes, looming like bruises in the air. The sermon is not a lecture. It is a summoning. It is also a testimony your own. given without consent. Lights begin to orbit you. They look like lanterns, but closer. Not mechanical, not divine. They are jarred memories, glowing faintly, dancing in perfect sacrilegious rhythm. Some of them contain pieces of you, some don't, not anymore. You try to reach for one. It hisses. The glyph flares beneath you. You recognize the structure, a heretic seal. One used in the Covenant of Teeth long before records were safe to keep. This particular glyph is used to mark a soul that has spoken a truth forbidden to itself. You spoke something once. To yourself ... in a mirror, or a dream. The glyph remembers, so must you. Among them, you feel it then, a vibration in your ribs. Not pain, not pleasure remembrance. You hum involuntarily, and suddenly you are too. One of you remains in the dome, listening, unblinking, breathless. The other steps onto a pulpit of dripping black glass. This new you wears no skin, only truth. The congregation before you is not made of people. They are echoes. Each tooth bears your initials. Another an old man stitched entirely from receipts, invoices, and of paid promises leans forward. His paper skin rustles with disappointment. They are here for the next verse, and you must deliver it. You open your mouth, and what falls out is not a voice. It is a document, a sacred fragment. It reads itself aloud in tones made from thunder, regret, and the closing of ancient gates. Verse 4, when the God Star died. The final sermon did not mourn, it celebrated. For the silence that followed was proof of success. Nothing was left to save. Nothing left to judge. The echoes clap. Not with hands with wings, hooves, pages. You bow, you bleed. You are still to the other you, still in the dome, watches this unfold. You feel the sermon dig deeper. The glyph beneath you expands. It becomes a ring. Inside it, a map appears, but not of the land, of the Order of Black Worship, a secret cult erased from history for writing the final chapter before time was ready. Their diagram appears in full now, etched into the sky of the dome, spinning slowly, whispering names you should not hear. The Eater of Apologies, the Monk of Reversed Mercy, the candle that cried twice. Their prayers were not requests, but contracts. You signed one long ago, in a night where sleep had weight and teeth. The sermon knows this. It shows you a memory of yourself as a child, holding a book too heavy for mortal hands, reading aloud. Each word you spoke was a seed. Each grew a curse. You forgot the language. But the language never forgot you. The dome fractures. Not broken peeled, like fruit, you see beyond it. For just a moment, a great congregation of the unremembered, seated in rows of stars. They wait for a new preacher. The sermon hushes, your breath returns. Stolen once, now returned, changed. You're offered a choice. Speak the next verse and become the mouth, or remain silent and be consumed by the final listener, who waits beyond the pulpit, head turned sideways so it may hear the end of all echoes. You hesitate, and the dome whispers, there are no choices here, only different consequences, so you speak. And the black sermon smiles. The black sermon smiles, though not in any human sense. You feel the gesture more than see it, like a lidless eye slowly closing in satisfaction somewhere behind your heart. The dome dissolves now, not shattering but thinning, melting like the veil between worlds or between decisions. And with its retreat, sound returns. To much of it, a chorus of half-spoken rites. The rustle of parchment that writes itself, footsteps made by those who no longer walk. The air grows thick with scroll dust and a scent you've smelled only in dreams, binding ink mixed with ash. You're still standing at the pulpit, yet also not. You've rejoined yourself. You didn't see it enter. It wears a cowl sewn from scripture, its sleeves trailing words in the air like vapor. You think it's blind, but it's watching you. The verse is accepted, it says, in a voice that sounds like a raven digesting secrets. Its hands are too long, each finger ends in a nib. You glance down, there's now a scroll tied to your wrist. You didn't feel it placed there. You didn't write it, and yet ... the ink is still wet. The script keeper leans close, sniffs the scroll, and inhales sharply, almost delighted. A heretic's draft, it whispers, delicious. It straightens, points behind you. The church has changed again. No longer a dome, no longer a cathedral. It is a train station, but not modern, not real. I drank the memory of my sister. Each confession pulses softly, like a living thing nailed to the glass. You hear the arrival bell, not a chime, but a moan pulled through brass pipes. You've been scheduled. The script keeper hands you a ticket. On it, a single phrase burned into parchment. Last stop, the library of lies that believed themselves. You board. The door seals behind you with the hiss of exhaled scripture. The car is empty, save for benches covered in mossed vellum and one other passenger. A girl with a raven's head and a rosary of unwritten names. She nods at you. Once they've been waiting, she croaks. The curators of the ending index, you do not speak. The train jolts forward not smoothly, but like it's tearing itself from the present. Outside the windows, the world unravels. You pass inverted monasteries, suspended by sorrow. You glimpse the grave of the future, its stone already withered. And once you see your own silhouette, watching from the shore, holding a book that reads you. The girl leans over, clutches your scroll, and smells it. You wrote this when you were dreaming of murder, she says softly. Don't worry, all good authors do. You do not remember dreaming that. You will. The train begins to slow. You arrive not at a station, but a threshold. No signs, no warnings. Only a librarian, tall, inverted, walking on ceilings, wearing robes made from lost footnotes. He drops to the floor like a wet curtain and gestures for your ticket. You give it to him. He rips it in half. Both halves bleed. Come, he whispers. The index has waited long enough, and it forgets slowly. You step through the threshold, and feel a weight lift from you, a memory you never knew you had. Gone, in its place, something colder. Expectation. You've entered the library of lies that believed themselves. It stretches endlessly in all directions. Every book here was once a truth. Until someone needed it not to be, they rewrote it here. The air smells of binding glue and penitence. Shelves float, stairs reverse. And in the distance, a child screams in a dialect only remorse can understand. You begin to walk, guided by an unseen hand. Each step takes you deeper, not just through the building, but through possibility. Your scroll begins to vibrate. One of the books is calling it. Or perhaps it's the other way around. You follow the hum. There. An alcove with a book bound in skin that recognizes you. It smiles with no mouth. It bleeds your birthday. It opens itself. And inside, your verse. Already transcribed, only ... the words are different. Twisted, sharpened, perfected. I didn't write this, you whisper. Now, replies the book, but you will. The script keeper's voice echoes faintly from somewhere far away. Every sermon rewrites its preacher. And you feel it now, something behind your teeth. Words not yours, verses not spoken, pages that itch to be born. You will need to read them, all of them, eventually. A corridor yawns, shelves bend to allow passage. Books flutter open in anticipation. A new aisle, its plaque reads, Sermon Residue, High-Risk Transcripts. And beneath it, scrawled in burnt ink, if you can read this, you're already implicated. Down the aisle, the lights dim. Not because the bulbs go out, because the shadows decide to thicken. This is where the verses that were never preached, the ones too dangerous even for the black sermon, are shelved. As you walk, you hear WHISPRINGS ... snippets of language that your ears understand. Deliberate, non-human, you turn to see a faceless curator. Its robe is stitched from recalled paragraphs. Its mask bears no eyes, only a quill embedded where a mouth might once have been. In its hand, a lantern filled with censored light, which flickers like a memory the mind refuses to retain. It bows not deeply, but enough for protocol. Then it raises the lantern toward your chest. A beam of forgetfulness strikes you just for an instant. You stagger, you no longer recall your favorite book. The title's gone, only the emotion remains. Terror and awe braided together. The curator nods again. It approves. And gestures for you to follow. You do. Because there is nothing else left to do, is there? The aisle leads you into the scriptorium, the central heart of the library. No doors, just thresholds shaped by grammar. No windows, only eyeless portraits. Each whispering a prayer in reverse Latin ... in the center. A desk. Atop it, an open codex, ink still fresh. Quill still twitching, but no hand writes it. The pen is moved by intention alone. And now that intention turns to you, the curator lifts your palm, presses it to the open page. It accepts your pulse. Words ripple out, suspended upside down, and in it, the sermon's author. Or what remains, it has no face. But every time you blink, its shape rewrites. At first a priest, then a flame, then the shadow of someone you loved who was buried with their mouth sewn shut. It speaks not with words, but with your memories, each one emerging warped and canny. Your birthday wish whispered backward, the smell of your childhood home, drowned in mildew and static. A lullaby your grandmother never taught you because she never had the chance to stop singing it. This is the preacher of drafts. They once called it a thing that writes people, that edits entire bloodlines until they say what it wants them to. You glance again at the pulpit. It now holds a book. A single tome bound in skin to familiar. Its title changes every time you try to focus on it. But you catch a few iterations. The Gospel according to the Forgotten. The Manual of Self-Erasure. The Black Sermon. Annotated by those who didn't survive. And one last version. Your autobiography. You don't remember writing it, but it's written in your hand, every word. You reach for the book, unable not to, and it opens itself like a blooming wound. The chapter headings are wrong. They aren't events, they are questions. When did the shadows begin whispering your name? Why did the cradle have teeth marks? What did you promise the mirror when it cried? Why were you the only one the bell rang for? You flip the pages, faster, they grow damp, soft. The ink begins to bleed backward, as if time regrets having recorded it. A line glows at the very center of the book. It reads, "To preach the Black Sermon, you must first be erased." You drop the book. It vanishes before it hits the ground, so do the congregants. One by one, they fold each with a sound like wet parchment torn at the spine. You're alone again, except not, because the pulpit descends slowly, gravely. The preacher's face still shifts, but this time it starts to become yours. Not in mockery, in invitation. The sermon doesn't need to be written. It needs to be recited. You open your mouth, and nothing comes, because first it must be put into you. The preacher leans close, your lips part. The final word of the first sermon is spoken, and now it's inside you, settled like rot in the basement of your tongue. Somewhere behind you, a bell tolls, but not one made of metal. It's the sound of a name being revoked, yours, and in its place, only a single note, held too long, like breath trapped underwater. Welcome, you are now part of the liturgy. The corridors don't remember you, not anymore. Where once your footprints etched briefly into the dust, now the floor stretches smooth, sterile, and waiting as though it had never been walked, never been dared. You look back, no trace. That hospital room, but the monitors tick upward, counting sins, not seconds. Every flicker leaves a residue, a question sticks to the back of your teeth. What if your life has already been rewritten? Because here's the truth the sermon hid under its skin. You're not reading a book, you're being read. The cathedral is paging through you, skimming, annotating, judging your margins. You feel it now in your spine, a tightness, like a finger running along a crease, ready to fold. The corridor opens into a room that should not exist. A reading chamber, not built by hands, but by editing. Constructed like an idea rather than a structure. Shelves, but no books, only bookmarks, ribbons soaked in old breath, clipped notes whispering in repetition. Too much hope in chapter 12. Remove. The protagonist has not suffered enough. Her death was too merciful. Rewrite. In the center, a reading chair. It faces away from you, but the pages floating around it shift midair. They orbit, twitching, searching for cohesion. You step closer, the chair turns. Of course it's you seated, but not you as you are now, you as the reader. Eyes hollow from story-fatigue, fingers stained from ink that bled up from the margins. You're reading something aloud, but the words fall behind time, delayed. And now you hear them twice, from the lips of your seated self. And from your own mouth, lagging by a heartbeat, the echo catches up, synchronizes. Locks, you cannot stop, because the book has opened again. It now rests on a pedestal you don't recall seeing. This time, it's smaller, slim, titled only Revisions. The pages are parchment thin, delicate, each one is blank until you read it. Then it fills with memory, regret, dream. You try to close the book. But the book closes you, your vision narrows. And in the blur of the corners, you catch new annotations, handwritten in margins of smoke. This one remembers too much. Begin erasure protocol, chapter 0, send to archivist. The room darkens not with absence of light, but with presence of decision. You're no longer the character, you are now the draft. A footnote in the gospel of forgetting. Suddenly there's motion from behind a row of shelves. Something moves, not walks, not crawls. It edits its way closer. It wears no form, only redactions. A cloak of black lines, censor bars. Withheld truths, it leaves behind the scent of erased names. You back away too late. The editor sees you. And for a moment, its face is your mother's, then your own, then no face at all. It doesn't need one, because you're already written. It lifts a hand not to strike, but to strike through. Its fingers end in quills, dipped in ink made from screamed-out secrets. It writes a single glyph into the air between you. You know it instinctively as silence, and then your throat locks. Not from pain, but from authorization, the editor turns your page, and you are once again behind yourself in the corridor, walking, unaware that you've already walked this passage. Twice, 10 times, more, the sermon loops. The ink dries, the editor waits, and somewhere, deep within the cathedral's bindings, the next reader is selected. The chapel now hums not with prayer, but with revision. You've walked these halls, yes, but something has changed. A word removed here, a comma spliced there. The shadows don't lie the same way they did before. They're shorter now, hungrier, the doors ahead and seal like eyelids, though something has rewritten their age. Some sound ancient ... others ... unborn. Forgive me, says one voice, again and again, like a scratched record. I knew what the ink cost, says another. The cardinal steps aside, revealing what the pulpit hides, a mirror. Cracked not from impact, but from indecision. It shows your reflection, but only before what? You don't know. You want to, but the mirror only shows what was erased. You lean in and realize the mirror isn't glass at all. It's a sheen of memory, stretched like skin over silver, and it's breathing. Every time you blink, the reflection blinks slightly late. You test it, blink again, and again. Then your reflection doesn't blink at all. It smiles instead. You step back, to slow. The reflection steps forward, it speaks. And what it says isn't in words, but you hear it anyway. You shouldn't have read ahead. You stumble, backpedal. The cardinal does not help, only watches. His rogue mouths laugh, not because it's funny, but because you finally understand the joke. On the altar lies a page, bound in bone, inked in red. It's your confession. It pierces not flesh but identity. Your name pours out. Ink black, memory red. It drips down the stone. The door sighs open. Beyond is the vestry of echoes. Small, circular, impossible. Inside, 5 chairs. Each holds a version of you. One younger, one older, one kinder, one worse. One you do not recognize. They all turn to look. The unfamiliar one speaks. You should sit. You forget what sunlight smells like. You forget the year you lost your voice for 3 days and secretly liked the silence. The salt circle begins to burn not red, not orange, but regret blue. The vestry is gone, only the ring remains. And the sermon, still ringing between your ribs. The other yous are gone. Were they ever here, the preacher remains. They gesture, you understand. It is time to accept. You step forward, and finally, you speak the one word you've never dared aloud. Amen, the ceiling collapses upward. You are weightless, not flying, not falling, just unhinged. 1,000 choir boys scream inside your eardrums. Each one carries your face, each one accuses you. They chant, he listened, he learned, he let it in. A final bell tolls, not in the air, but in your spine. Each vertebra sings its own regret. You land on your knees, not in a church, not in a room. Just on the raw idea of confession. A parchment waits before you. Your name is already signed. But beneath it, a blank line. A title awaits, you understand. You must name the sermon. And the name you choose will rewrite everything that came before. You hesitate. Behind you, the preacher watches with a face made of your doubt, and you write, no, not yet. Confess, not to be forgiven, but to remember why you sinned. You step closer. The mirror reflects not your face, but your doubt. A version of yourself that never came to the vestry. Your skin peels back not from pain, but to reveal scripture beneath. Each rib is a stanza, each organ a footnote. The final bell tolls. It does not ring in your ears, but behind your eyes. And suddenly, you understand what the black sermon truly is. A map to the part of yourself that never wanted to survive, but did anyway. A key to the doors you should never open, but must. A story told by liars to warn other liars what happens when the truth is too heavy to carry. You kneel, you speak, you name the sermon. And at last, it ends, but not for you. For someone reading this, for someone listening. For someone who hasn't yet realized, the sermon has already begun. And you are next. The walls no longer stay still, or a version of it, though everything is wrong by 1 degree. Too many pews, not enough shadows. The altar now looks buried rather than built, with soil clinging to its base and finger bones nested like roots. Above it hangs the mirror moon, the one that once sang but now watches. Its mouth is gone. Only its reflection remains in every polished surface you dare not look directly into. And you feel something inside you shift. Not possession, not transformation, something more profane. Recognition. You realize you've been here before. Not physically, but in the pauses between bad decisions. In the milliseconds before a lie leaves your lips. In the heat behind your eyes when you pretend to forgive. This is that place. It was never holy. It was never safe. It is called the Nave of Regret. And all who reach it must offer something no one else can give. Yourself, but you already did, didn't you? That's what makes the room smile. Yes, the room smiles. A crack in the ceiling widens like a grin, lined with unlit candles that flicker in reverse with sucking flame inward. The floor opens beneath your feet and you fall slowly, not plummeting, not descending, but lowering, like an offering plate passed hand to hand. Below, you see it, the original sermon. Carved not on paper, nor stone, but on the flesh of a still living witness. Their eyes are sewn shut with sonic thread. Their lips are sealed with wax shaped like unanswered prayers. But their skin ... their skin sings. You hover closer, involuntarily. The words on their body shift. They change based on your thoughts. You test it. You think, what if I had stayed home? A verse blooms on their collarbone. The name is blurred, but the engraving pulses when you look at it. You know it's yours. In this place, all timelines converge like dripping candle wax. You see them, yourself at age 9, clutching a hymnal too heavy for your hands. Yourself at age 23, burning a letter you never opened. Yourself, one breath from now, mouthing a name you've never learned but always feared. Above, the ceiling splits open. You expect stars. You get eyes. A dozen, hundreds, thousands, all human-sized, all watching only you. None blink, and something walks across them. It wears no shoes. It carries no light. It is dressed in pages of ancient scripture stitched into a shroud. Its face is a mirror with your reflection delayed by one breath. You want to speak. You want to ask, but the being hushes you with a single finger made of cathedral bells. It says nothing instead. It gives you a book, bound in scar tissue, edged in red ink, and worn. The title changes every time you blink ... once it reads Liturgy of the Self. Another blink, the hollow prayer, then biography, you. You open to the first page. It reads only, you will confess what you haven't done yet. You will remember what you chose to forget. You will kneel, not to worship, but to balance the weight. Behind you, someone else kneels. You don't turn. You know it's not someone, it's everyone. All the congregants who ever fell silent during a scream. All the preachers who ever swapped truth for beauty. All the echoes now collapsed into a single breath that does not belong to you but is inside you now. The being gestures, the book vanishes, so does the being. But your reflection lingers in the air, floating. It recites, let the veil fall. Let the silence rupture, let the echo feed. And with that, your mouth moves on its own. You begin speaking the black sermon. Not with words, with regrets, every incent apology. Every moment you bit your tongue, every time you told yourself it's not that bad. They pour out of you like ink and water ... Each syllable distorts the world around you. The stone melts, the ceiling sags like wet cloth. The eyes above weep soot, and in the distance, you hear it, applause, not celebration. Agreement, consent. Those who hear the sermon are bound to repeat it. Those who repeat it become doorways, and doorways do not walk away. You fall forward, through the floor, through the years, through every moment where you might have said no but didn't. And at the end of it, there is only silence, not peaceful, predatory. You have reached the mouth of the black church, and it opens inward. A final voice greets you from the dark. It is your own, but older, but colder, but unburdened, confession complete, like an old photo that never captured you quite right. And now, from the altar, a choir of eyes rises, floating. Each eyeball blinks once in sync with your heartbeat. You try not to count, but of course you do. There are 13 watchers, each one aligned to a sin no scripture ever warned you of. Each one hungry, they observe you not for judgment, but for alignment. Would you listen again if you knew it would make you? There is no right answer, only yes or yes again. Your lips move. The chapel dissolves, not in flame, nor in shadow, but in unrecognition, as if your memory forgets how to hold walls together. Floorboards vanish into impossible angles, and pews drift upward like regrets that never settled properly. Even the altar of faces loses its expressions, their smiles sloughing off like old bark. You remain, which is to say, you are what remains in the absence of structure. A new space unfurls a sanctum made not of matter, but of ritual scars. Each breath you take leaves a mark behind you, a spiral, a number, a name you felt lost. You're not alone, but you wish you were. A choir hums below, hearing ultrasound in intent. subhuman in harmony. They chant without lungs, sing without mouths, worship without gods. He comes clothed in ink and famine, they intone. He drinks sermons dry, a pulse passes through you. Not your own, you check your hands. One of them is now entirely blackened, as though dipped in a well of failed confessions. The other hand, translucent hand inside, another hand stirs. Smaller, not yours, still alive. The room, no. The domain responds. From above, the last unspoken vow of a prophet who died in reverse. The preacher, but not the one from before. That was his tongue. This is his throat. He does not speak. Instead, he opens his mouth, and a book falls out. It lands before you softly. Its cover is unmarked. Its pages are still writing themselves. You lean closer. Words form, not in ink, but in your voice. The listener reached the 28th veil, and there, among the echoes of their own spine, they met something neither sermon nor silence. They met themselves rewriting. You recoil, but it's too late. The book knows your breath now. From its spine, a thin needle unfolds. Without warning, it lances your hand. The translucent one, you don't bleed. Instead, letters spill out. Sentences you never wrote, psalms you will. A prophecy carved in reverse order. He will listen, he will kneel, he will forget. He will lead, the preacher watches. Your mouth moves. Your ribs part like obedient teeth. From within you, a bell chimes once. You never swallowed it, you became it, you reign. Not as metal does, nor glass, but as recollection breaking skin. A toll that echoes not outward, but inward, folding time inwards like a prayer scrawled in reverse. Somewhere far or near, or never something hears you, the response is immediate. The sanctum trembles, not from force but from recognition. It knows your name now. The one no midwife whispered, the one the graveyard once hummed to a stone that didn't yet exist. The preacher nods not approval, acknowledgement. He steps aside, revealing what lies behind him. A threshold of bone tall, narrow, lined with sigils that breathe as you read them. Every glyph is a question you've avoided. Every line a mirror. You approach, a smell arises. Old citrus, split wood, and something beneath it all, memory after it's bled out. As you pass through the arch, your feet crunch on scripture like autumn leaves. Words dry and curling, some still warm from thought. The other side is not a room, not a void. It is a corridor made of choices never made. On either wall, scenes flicker in liquid obsidian. You never answered the door that night. You chose the knife instead of the bell. You walked away from the sermon. But in all of them, the ending is the same. You turn and listen, no matter where you walk, no matter what you change, the sermon finds you. It always begins behind you, above, a clock with no hands ticks. You try to follow the corridor, but it doesn't lengthen. It repeats, not in pattern, but in tone. A hum grows louder, familiar. It's your voice, layered, distorted, aged 1,000 years and unborn at once. It sings the same 3 words. It has begun. The corridor collapses inward, suddenly. You're in a cathedral without angles, impossible geometry. Your mind cannot settle on whether it's vast or intimate. The air smells of ink and silence. You kneel, not by will, but by design. The black book hovers before you, open once more. This time, the pages display reflections, not words. Your face, but not your face. Creatures cowl around your shoulders. The tongue in your mouth is not yours. It tastes of ash and finalities. Someone whispers behind you. You'll give the next sermon. A hand touches your shoulder, cold, human, papery with time. You dare to turn. There is no one, but the voice continues. They'll listen because they must, because the bell rings not for the pious, but for the unwilling. Your throat tightens, not with fear, with scripture. You can feel the syllables growing in your chest like tumors with rhythm. You cough, a feather escapes. Black, barbed, beautiful, it flutters down. turns into a quill, and lands on the open page. No ink appears. Because you will write with breath, from the ceiling descends an object. A crown made of church bells, silent, cracked, heavy. It hovers just above your scalp, waiting. You do not resist. Because resistance is also a kind of worship. The crown lowers, touches, and then rings once. The sound isn't heard, it's remembered, and in that remembrance, the congregation awakens. Not people, not shadows. Memories of ears that once heard sermons, they gather now around you. Empty pews filled with past listeners. Their faces shift, blur, repeat. You recognize none of them. And all of them, one leans forward. Mouth sewn shut with rosary thread, yet there I say it. We've been waiting for your words. You open your mouth, the sermon rises. It is not yours. But it wears your voice. You begin. The first syllable tumbles from your lips like a stone down a forgotten well. It hits something soft, something listening. Something that has always been listening. The sermon unfolds. Not in language, in realities. Each sentence spins a new contradiction into being. The silence at the center of thunder. The death that precedes life. The God who prays to something else. Your audience doesn't move, because movement would mean denial. Their heads tilt not in reverence, but in recognition. They've heard this before, in dreams where the sky reversed. In moments when the house was too quiet for its number of occupants. Your voice deepens, not in pitch, in origin. You are no longer speaking from your throat. The words pour from your marrow. The sermon describes a church built on a single screen. A choir of extinct saints who only sing when no one believes. A child born with no future because he ate it in the womb. You weep, not because it's sad, but because your eyes remember how. The black book shudders in front of you. Each page now bleeds ink. The way trees bleed sap when they're dying wrong. It shows your sermon word for word, but backwards and in someone else's hand. You continue, you describe a preacher who preaches himself out of existence. The book shuts itself. It will not open again until someone else speaks the first line. You take the crown from your head. It leaves a ring behind, a circle of absence where your hair will never grow again. You walk to the pulpit, which now leads nowhere, just a long stare into dark. At the base of the steps lies a mirror. You look, you see not yourself. You see every preacher before you, reflected all at once. Their eyes are your eyes now. You do not blink, because you will watch for the next one. The next voice, the next sermon, the next echo. The cathedral groans, not with age but with hunger. And you realize the truth. The black sermon never ends. It is not a message, it is a ritual of continuity. Each voice feeds the next, each listener becomes the next pulpit. You back away from the mirror, it follows.